This is Maker's Mark's first new mash bill and first wheat whiskey ever. It was created to celebrate the role regenerative agriculture plays in creating healthier soil, better flavor, and a more sustainable future. Now, Star Hill Farm is named after the 1,100-acre farm that is home to the Maker's Mark distillery, chosen by its founders Margie and Bill Samuel Sr. in 1953 for its unique water source and proximity to the grain growers. Now, that's all well and good, but how does it actually taste? You're going to want to hear about this one. Stay tuned. It's the Mash and Drum. What's up, folks? I'm Jason C, and welcome back to the Mash and Drum Whiskey Room here on YouTube. If you haven't yet, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Appreciate the support, everyone. So, with the launch of Star Hill Farm Whiskey, Maker's Mark has formed an alliance with Regenified and Understanding Agriculture, which provides education and technical support to build healthy farm ecosystems. Now, what this alliance will end up doing is invite farms, bars, and restaurants starting in New York, Kentucky, and Greater London to join its mission, which is its pledge to adopt regenerative practices in sourcing and operations while promoting its benefits through menu storytelling and consumer engagement. Now, some distillers have really leaned into this idea and talking about it, but I think Maker's Mark has taken it a little bit of a step up in making the alliance and talking about this in an educational format. Now, like I said, it's all well and good, but what's in the bottle? Now, Maker's Mark has used the same mash bill for over 70 years to create their long-standing flavor profile, or flavor vision as they like to call it. Star Hill Farm Whiskey will evolve each year. It's going to explore new soil, wheat, water, and different types of wood grain to impart those quality ingredients that they're going to be looking for to changing this up each and every release. Now, this release, or the inaugural release, will highlight their soft red winter wheat and remove corn entirely, which is why it is now a wheat whiskey. Now, the 2025 release of Star Hill Farm Whiskey is crafted from two mash bills, one with 70% soft red winter wheat and 30% malted barley. The other mash bill is 100% malted soft red winter wheat. Star Hill Farm Whiskey is aged for approximately 7 to 8 years. It's bottled with an ABV of 57.35% or 114.7 proof. It's available in limited quantities nationwide for a suggested retail price of $100. Now, as you can see, I've been hitting this bottle pretty hard and sharing it just because there is some really interesting flavors here, and we'll get into that. The one thing that struck me when I first poured this is the color. This is a very dark color, especially for wheat whiskey. You think 8 to 9 years old, you know, it wouldn't be this this concentrated in color, but it really does have a beautiful color to it. I feel like that's the first thing people realize. Whenever I've shared this whiskey pretty recently, the first thing people notice is the color of it. So let's see how it tastes. Let's dive in. I always talk about when I first cracked this open, because I did crack this open on a live stream a couple weeks ago, and the thing that immediately jumped out of the bottle was how wheat forward it was. So that breadiness, the wheat grain, the malted wheat that's in here really jumped out of the glass to me. It was, you know, kind of coming off like a loaf of freshly opened like wheat bread, like whole wheat bread, and I was getting some rich fruit flavor, but this bottle has changed dramatically to me as the more it's opened up, and it seems to be just getting better, and we'll dive into kind of the evolution here. And it goes back to my point that anyone that says that bottles don't change over time, I'm not saying all bottles change over time with some oxidation, the flavors can change, but some bottles do, and I think this is a perfect example of it. So, I don't know, I'll still be a firm believer in that. So the first thing that jumps out is that whole wheat note, like that whole wheat bread note, but that's what I got in the beginning, but now it's coupled with caramel, maybe a little toffee here. There is some wood spice. There's some nice baking spice here, but that toffee coupled with almost like a fig or a raisin type note that's kind of behind it is really interesting. Also getting a bit of a root beer note. I think there's like a little bit of a root beeriness to it, which is root beeriness. I think I just made that up. There's a root beer note to it. Maybe a slight hint of chocolate, but that toasted whole wheat bread with the caramel on it, and maybe some like fig or raisin or even like a dark cherry. It's really opened up nicely. All right, let's give it a try. It's got a lot of spice for a wheat whiskey. I will say that. If anyone is thinking that this is gonna come in sweet and easy, it does come in sweet, but it does come in with a really nice spice palette. It's almost like a nutmeg, allspice, black pepper combination that just really hits the back of the palate. But the front of the palate to me is just a lot of honey. I do get that little hint of like root beer, that breadiness that it has. It just has really opened up into something, a whole different animal, especially after I first tried it, where I'm like, this just tastes like a bowl of Wheaties cereal. Like, what else is going on here? But it's really opened up. There's a little bit of a nuttiness here. It's almost like when you get the whole wheat bread, but it's like that grain, like the 12 grain or the 15 grain bread. I feel like you're taking a bite of that. But again, with that caramel on top of the toasted bread, that like multi-grain bread type of note. And yeah, that fruit flavor that it has. The fruit, the dark fruit note here that I'm picking up, a little bit of like that, again, that cherry, that raisin, whatever you want to call it, is really saving this. If it was just all bready and just toffee, I feel like it'd be less interesting. But I feel like that little hint of a dark fruit really gives it another layer that makes it really interesting. And then the spice. This isn't, like, I compared this to the Heaven Hill 19 wheat whiskey. And the Heaven Hill 19, as good as it is and as good, you know, it really shows that age and the oak and the sweetness. This just kind of blew it out of the water for me with the spice that's on it and the finish that's on it that really lingers. You know, I give makers a lot of crap because I feel like they just keep doing the same thing over and over and over and rebranding it or calling it something else. You know, you had the wood finishing series that had, you know, the license plate numbers, the R2D2, whatever you want to call it. You know, the FAEs and the BEPs and all this stuff. And then they've kind of rebranded it. Now they have the heart release and all this stuff. But it seems to be the same thing where they use the, you know, a couple different staves. They throw it in there, kind of change the profile. And it's kind of been the same thing. It's kind of, they're just kind of singing the same song, just in a different venue. And I feel like this puts Maker's Mark in a little bit of a different light for me, because I think this is something really unique and something to be excited about. So let's go another sip here. Yeah, I really like this. I think in that sip, I got maybe a little bit of apple on there too. I think this has opened up really nicely. I really appreciate what Maker's Mark is doing here. Now look, I don't know enough about farming and the grain and the soil and the regenerative practices to, you know, make any sort of commentary on it. You know, I'll admit it. I am not, you know, I'm from New York. I grew up on a farm. So I have no idea what any of that stuff means. However, the flavor here and the fact that it's Maker's Mark's first, you know, new mash bill is really interesting and it's really delicious. I'm really curious to see where this goes. I'm really digging this one. And for $100, I think that Maker's Mark is really onto something. I hope they don't mess with it too much because I really enjoy this. Like, I just want to keep tasting this at a higher age. So before we get into the final breakdown, let's get into the question of the day. All right, so question of the day is from RickBay9118, and he asks, with items like Wild Turkey 8-Year 101 coming back, it makes the comparison back to previous versions apples to apples, with the old versions being so much darker and richer in flavor. What do you attribute such a difference in depth of color and flavor between those older versions and today's whiskey when the other elements such as age, mash bill, proof, etc. all come back into alignment? Great question, Rick, and there's a few different answers that I've gotten this over the course of time. I've asked this very question myself. Why did the whiskey back then taste so different than it does now? And there's a few different reasons for it. I mean, you have distilling practices. Today, you could create such a more elegant spirit than you could back in the day. So maybe they just have better cleaning practices. Maybe that mustiness and that richness sometimes is just attributed to the way the whiskey was distilled. Remember, a lot of the distilleries will upgrade equipment, they'll refurbish equipment over time, so things can make that change. Grain comes into a big part of where the flavor comes from, so maybe where they're getting the grain has changed, maybe the way they take care of the grain has changed a little bit. But the biggest reason I always hear why the whiskey tastes so different back then than it does now is the wood. The oak that they used back in the 70s and the 80s was wildly different than the oak that they use today. Now, even though the same wood species is the same today as it was, you know, back in the day, where they source it, how it's grown, how old the trees are, can be wildly different than what they use. So if you're a firm believer like I am that most of your whiskey's flavor is gonna come from the barrel, then that is gonna have a huge impact on the flavor of the whiskey coming out of the bottle. So I do think it's a combination of things, but more often than not, from what I've been told, And what I've learned, I think it's the oak and the wood that they're using today versus what they were using back in the 70s and the 80s. All right, final breakdown time. All right, final breakdown for the Maker's Mark Star Hill Farm Wheat Whiskey. Price for this one, $100. Resale market value. I've seen this as high as about $250. Not sure if they're still going for that price, but that's what I've seen as high as the resale market value, price-wise. Availability here is limited. These are starting to drop though, and I have seen people running into these at stores, especially across Kentucky and other parts of the country. Now, people have kind of a weird thing with wheat whiskey. Some people love it. Some people are like, it's not bourbon. Not gonna really go towards that. But we'll see what happens as this goes forward. But for now, the availability, it's gonna be limited. Value here for me, I think is gonna be above average. You know, I'm kind of putting together the price, the age, and obviously what I'm tasting in the bottle. I think between all those factors, what you're getting, if this whiskey was a little less interesting, I'd probably say even or even maybe below average. But I do think what you're getting in the bottle is actually really interesting. So for me, this is above average. Most I'd pay, I could probably go up to maybe 120, 130 for this, maybe 150 max, being that this is the first release, but honestly, I just really like it. As far as alternatives go, you have the Bernheim Barrel Proof from Heaven Hill. That's going to be your main alternative. And then you also have the wheat whiskeys from Old Elk, especially the single barrels that are cast strength. I think those two, if you want to get into wheat whiskey, can be good alternatives to this one. And lastly, is this a skip, a try before you buy, a buy, or a buy and back it up? This to me is a buy. I think this whiskey is so interesting. I love the flavors. It's different. I think that's what I'm searching for now. I'm just searching for things that are different, things that are delicious but also unique. This, I think, coming from Maker's Mark is a big surprise, and I think that this for $100 is definitely a buy. The flavors here, the way it opens up over time, and I stress that the most. If you do happen to pick up a bottle and you pour this for the first time and you taste it and it tastes very bready, just give it some time to open up. It does get sweeter, more flavors come to the forefront, and I just think this is a home run from Makers. I cannot wait to see what they do next with this. All right, guys, well, hope you enjoyed this review for the new Maker's Mark Star Hill Farms Wheat Whiskey. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the subscribe button below. Please hit the like button, and if you haven't yet, follow me on Instagram. Let me know down in the comments what you think of this one. If you're out on the hunt for it, if you've already gotten one, I'd love to hear what you say in the comments. And also, if you have a question of the day, please leave it in the comments below. And of course, with all that said, like I always say, it's not about the whiskey, it's the people you share it with. So cheers, and I'll see you next time right here on the Master and Drum. Cheers, folks.